Chapter 18 The Fractured Light. Azural, Talvar, and Soraya moved cautiously through the woods, each of their steps muffled by the thick carpet of leaves. After their harrowing escape from Malakar's fortress, a quiet tension hung between them, one compounded by exhaustion and the knowledge that Malakar's influence reached farther than they'd realized. They stopped in a small clearing, surrounded by the dense cover of ancient oaks and an eerie silence. Talvar checked the perimeter, his gaze intense, scanning the trees for any sign of shadowed movement. Satisfied, he returned to where Azural sat, leaning against a fallen log. Soraya muttered a low incantation, her fingers tracing symbols in the air as a shimmering ward materialized around them, a faint glow signaling the protective barrier. "This should keep us safe until dawn," she said, her voice weary. Azural nodded in silent gratitude, but her eyes remained fixed on the forest, as though searching for something unseen. The three sat in silence, each lost in their thoughts. Talvar watched Azural with concern, noticing the distant look in her eyes, the quiet intensity that had grown in her since their encounter with Malakar. Finally, unable to hold back his doubts, he leaned forward, his voice a murmur. "You know we can't fully trust her," he said, his gaze flicking toward Soraya. "Malakar's reach, his corruption. I don't believe she's told us everything." Soraya's expression hardened, but she remained silent, her gaze steady and unflinching. Azural looked at them both, her voice calm, yet carrying the weight of her exhaustion. "I know," she said, looking first at Talvar, then at Soraya. "But we need her just as she needs us. Malakar's influence runs deep, but so does the strength of what we've survived together." Talvar's expression softened, and he gave a reluctant nod. "For now I'll stand with you, but we need answers." He looked pointedly at Soraya, his tone firm. "We've risked our lives for this fight. If there's something you're hiding, we need to know." Soraya looked down, her hand tightening around her staff. After a tense pause, she spoke, her voice low and laced with vulnerability. "I didn't think I would ever have to face him again. Malakar, he was my teacher once." She paused, her eyes filled with regret. "Everything I know about magic, he taught me. I thought I could leave that part of my past behind, but he never truly let me go." Azural's expression softened as Soraya's words settled over them, adding new depth to the fear and guilt in her eyes. "Then we face him together," Azural said, her voice quiet but resolute. "We cannot let him control us, any of us. Whatever he holds over you, we will find a way to break it." Soraya looked up, gratitude flickering across her face, though her eyes were still shadowed with doubt. Talvar, though still wary, seemed to relax, his gaze shifting from one ally to the next, a newfound resolve in his eyes. They were all bound together, whether by fate, choice, or the desperate need to rid the world of Malakar's influence. Night descended fully over the clearing, and the trio settled in to rest, each of them taking turns on watch. Azural drifted into a fitful sleep, her dreams filled with flashes of shadow and fire, fragments of memories twisted by Malakar's influence. She felt his presence in her mind, his voice a dark whisper that echoed through her thoughts. "You cannot escape me, Draconis Ignis Aeterni," he taunted, his voice soft, almost a caress. "You are bound to me now by fire and shadow. You will serve my will, or you will perish." Azural struggled against his words, her mind clawing for clarity, for some memory or truth that would break his hold, but the shadows around her only thickened, pressing down, suffocating her flame. She felt herself slipping, the light within her dimming under the weight of Malakar's darkness. Then, faintly, she heard a voice, a familiar warmth cutting through the shadows like a blade. "Azural," the voice called, gentle yet firm. "You are more than this darkness. You are fire, a light that cannot be extinguished." The voice steadied her, anchoring her mind even as the shadows clung to her, resisting her strength. With a surge of defiance she called upon the fire within her, letting it flare bright and fierce, pushing back against Malakar's presence. The darkness shuddered, recoiling, and she woke with a gasp, her skin tingling with the residual energy of her power. She glanced around, finding Talvar and Soraya both awake, their gazes filled with concern. Talvar moved closer, his hand resting on her shoulder, his voice a quiet reassurance. "We're here, Azural. Whatever you saw, whatever darkness he cast, it cannot take you while we stand by your side." Azural nodded, her heart steadying as she looked at her friends, allies bound by a purpose that went beyond vengeance or fear. Malakar's reach was powerful, but she would not face it alone. Together, they would find a way to sever his hold, to end his influence over them, and free the land from his shadow. As dawn broke over the clearing, casting the forest in a pale golden light, they rose, their determination renewed. Their next steps were uncertain, and the road ahead would be treacherous. But they moved forward, united by a shared purpose, knowing that whatever shadows lay ahead, they would face them together. For they were not just survivors, they were fire and light, a force strong enough to stand against the darkness.